Hi all, good morning. My name is Mahen Jayasena. I'm in the UI UX team. So today I'm going to talk about how to design a mobile app. It will be it's a vast area, but I'm going to get the key features and key things you should focus when you're designing a mobile app. So on my presentation, I have put an art, not a science. So it's all about the visual effects, how you see when you're doing a thing. This is the first appearance you will see when you download an app, and when you see it visually, if it's presenting, I think you got a good look. Then with the usability matters comes, if it's going on the correct direction, I think it will be kind of a very, it can come up to the best, the top apps in the market. So when you're creating a mobile app that appeals masses, that's the key features when you're designing an app. It's not for one or two people, it's for a majority, millions of people around the world. So there are a few things you should focus on when you're designing an app. As you know, there are almost 1.3 million applications basically on Android and iOS. There are quite a lot of apps in the market if you search, but when you're designing to become one of the best apps from those millions, it's not easy. It sounds a bit easy when you're designing something, but when it hits the top level, it's a bit of a challenge. It's not easy. So as mentioned on my previously, what I'll tell you is the key features, what you can focus when you're designing an app. So what does it take to design a perfect mobile application that appeals the masses? Like, number one, as I said, is a lightweight app. It should enable the users quickly to choose that. And, it's easy to organize the application as for the users offer. It's always not the designing level, it's the users factors. You have to keep that in mind. To achieve those 2 points, you can streamline the app's functionality, refrain yourself from adding too many fingers. Like, when you have a vision, you do it, you get the feedback, you redo a few steps. But if you keep continuing it, it can improve a lot. But if you're doing it drastically, you will definitely miss the user flows. So you have to keep that in mind. There's a line you have to draw and say, here we have to stop from here and we have to build the rest of the things. Then you can do some improvements. I think then you can, step by step, you can get the app into the best level it can possibly come. So on an average, most number of touchscreen, we say finger-friendly designs. So this is how like 49% is handled by, from your thumb. Some people use as, 36% use it from both hands, the top finger goes up and, control it. Some people use it as a joystick. So when you're designing an app, it should always keep that in mind. When I'm designing an app, I always follow like a letter U concept where it's easy to navigate because we play games from the joystick. So it's the same way we use if you're using both hands. So, that the icons, you have to be wide enough, and clarity, visibility, of whatever you're going to present, it have to be, in a perfect level. So those are like a very key factors when you start doing the wireframing. You have to keep that in mind when you're doing it. Decluttering. So that's one of the key things. A perfect example which I use is the bottom navigation. If you can see on the bottom, like, if you have quite a lot of icons there, it's not finger friendly and it's very annoying. From my point of view, we are doing a project where our client required, a few more options there. So we came up with a concept where we had 4 icons and, kind of a plus button in the middle where when you click on it, it expands and show the rest of the icons. So I think that was a client was happy. I think even the dev team, we all were happy about it because if you put more than, it says the standard is 5. So if you can reduce it to 4, it's better. That will be a perfect example. Like even if you have like, content or images or anything, you keep that in mind. Don't clutter it because it's a small screen. So you cannot figure things out when it's come to an app. The other thing is the user technique that progressive, disclose and show more options. I found a good example. So if you can see, there are few cards, but each card have high level details. It's very easy for you to, from a user's point of view to use, and it's very attractive, I think. If you have lengthy cards, you won't scroll. There's a saying on web, people do 3 scrolls, after that they close the browser or they move to the next pages. So when you do something like that, you have to keep like, minimalistic and, very simple, but easy to use kind of a concept when you're using. This is kind of a good example, then you will realize it when you're designing things. All right, let me move to the next screen. Offload task, like, for example, when you're entering a credentials, sometimes people get frustrated, for easy, like for example, your name and all that. Try to get it from different third-party things where you have previously put, like a kind of alternative. In some cases, you can reuse the previous entries data instead. You have to, asking for to type name, address and all that. So you don't want to create too much of complexity for the users at one time. So, if there are lengthy forms, try to minimalistic automatic and try to sync up from the previous entry. So it will be very good. I think the development teams can get those things into place. So I think that's the best way of doing to fill things like that. Obviously not the passwords and all that if in case, but basic data, it will be wonderful to have. Use familiar screens. This is what I noticed is many applications, they have, get started, what's new, search results, etc. So there's a flow, like, when you use 10 applications, if we follow, 5 on the same concept, it's good to do the similar kind of approach. But I'm not telling you guys to not to think of out of the box. But if it's too complex cities there, people get confused. They don't know what to do from there. So my advice is, if you guys can use kind of similar workflows, similarities are there, please use them. I think it will be good and it's easy for the users. There won't be any usability matters when it's come to UX part, but it's always welcome, when you think out of the box, things will be different. So that's wonderful. That's, as I said, minimize the user input. So you must have seen forms, some applications for mobile, you filling, halfway through, if you accidentally click on a back button or something, entire data is gone. Right, you have to come back. So from picture one, you can see a very lengthy form, right? It's when you look at it, it's really annoying. Like I don't feel like filling this up, right? Unless it's a must. If you're applying for a bank loan and all that, yes, you have to do it. But other than that, registering for a webinar or an event or something, I won't fill that up if it's not necessary for me. So one thing you can do is, if you imagine you have a bigger form, you can have steps. You fill 4 questions and you can have a next button. You go to next and fill the rest of the things. One thing is you can save this data, and even if it crash, when you come back, it will be there. So have one few steps, and finally you can submit these data to the application. So that's one good approach of doing, when it comes to a lengthy forms. We have tried it a few times on different projects, so it was successful. The other one is, as I told you previously, provide input mask field, techniques that helps the users to format input text. Like when you type, as I said, if you can have it very casually, you can put like this, and it's very easy for the people to use it. Like using place like autocomplete address forms, you can very easily put. So that will be very, from users point of view, it's easy because you're picking a lot of data from previous entries. The other one is dynamically valid field values. When you enter, like some of the apps I have seen, once you enter, you have to, either you have to submit to say whether you will get an error, or, you have to wait until you fill the entire form to see where your error is. Sometimes it's on top. You have to scroll up and find out where exactly the problem. So if you have an authentication, like when you filled it, if you give this is correct, it's easy for you. When it's come to the problem area, this is wrong. So you find a way how to basically sort out the problem before you scroll down and fill the rest of the thing. So that's one of the key things I think we should all follow. But if there's a client requirement, yes, definitely we have to rethink about it. But usability wise, you can always recommend for the client. I think this is the best way to do it. Get his feedback. I think if you give a valid reason, they will accept it also. The other thing is customizing the keyboard for types of queries. Like I think this has gone, I have seen quite a lot of apps. It's very annoying. So when it's come to the credit card, you will see, you have to put all the keys, then you have to click on one key to get the keypad, like basically the numbers on. So on specific areas, you can have it like, credit card, obviously it's a number. So if you can have the number keyboard, if you want to fill the data, obviously if you can have the letters there, that will be extremely helpful for the users. Then users will be happy to use it, and they will do it very quickly, other than clicking and going back and forth. The making the design consistent. So that's one of the key things. Like when it comes to 20 to 25 screens, if you have different screens, like imagine you have the submit button on the middle or the next button in the middle, the other screen you have it on the bottom, and the next screen you have it on the top. So there's no consistency. So you have to keep visual consistency always. If it's a color theme you're following, please follow the color theme step by step. If you want to highlight next buttons in blue and submit button in red, that should be ideal for the rest of the application as well. Also, the visual consistency, the functional consistency. It's the same way. It's the same thing. Functional also the same way. Example, one place you enter the date manually, and the other thing is a date picker. So you can't have that. So if it's a date picker, it should be date picker for the entire application. If it's just to enter date by numbers, then it should be like that. External consistent. Design should be consistent across the multiple products. This way, the users can apply prior knowledge when using another product. That you can, for example, you can use the mobile app versus the web. You have a web application as well as the mobile application. So you have to have the consistent external parties also. So when it comes to a business, the users will use the mobile sometimes. Then they bounce back to the web and they use that web to do different kind of operations. But similarities should be there to feel that it's the same brand, same product, same company which they are following. Here are a few practical recommendations on how to make a design consistent. Respect the platform guidelines. That's a must. Don't mimic the UI elements from other platforms. You can't get it from another platform and plug it in. It will be a bit of a problem. So keep the mobile app consistent with the website. If it's a website related thing, please keep that consistency, which I told you on previously. The other thing is always put the user in control. It's not you, it's not the development team, or it's not any other team. It's the user. End result is the user. If the user is not in control, then the app is not going to be a success because they are the one who's using it. So when you are designing it, don't think they are genius. Don't think they are very dumb. Keep it on the middle. Then everything will be on perfect level, right? So for example, I put few example which we face, back button should work properly, meaningful error messages. Sometimes it says error. So you don't know what the error is about. So have a meaningful, but the data you entered is wrong. Please correct it or something. Some meaningful message. Design and accessible interfaces. Sometimes I have seen, very small button on saying submit, and the rest of the things are very big. Now you can't even click on it. When it's come to the thumb, you have to, zoom or do something about it to submit. So always keep that in mind. So I have seen a lot of mobile apps use animation. So make it very optional, because it's already interactive app. So why you need to have another animation? The animations there. So it's a bit of a thing you have to keep in mind when you're designing. So the other key problems people are facing is that the navigation. Make it very simple, very helpful. Helping the users navigate should be very high priority for every app, because that's where you're going to pitch your key areas of the application. So you should focus on those things and keep it very simple. Don't clutter it. Very simple, right? Few tips I can tell you. Prioritize the navigation option. Don't mix with the navigation patterns. Different patterns. Don't use it. Don't mix it. Right? Make navigation visible. You have to give a priority, because those, as I told you previously, it's your key area. So please keep that area very clean and very clearly where people will click on it, and communicate current locations, where you are. When you click on the theme, now you can see when you click on the roles, you are getting highlighted. Then you know where it is. For example, we use this method on breadcrumbs on websites, so where exactly you are. So don't mix it up with the by clicking a gray button. Give a color to it to make it more live. Exactly where you are to proceed to the next level. Avoid asking permission rights at the start, right? Some application, I think most of you guys have seen, it's a tax. Imagine it's a very basic app. Will say something like, book a service station. You want to service your car. They have an app, so you're using it. As soon as you enter, they're asking whether they can access your camera, whether they can access your location, whether they can access your gallery. All these questions they ask. No point, right? Location, yes, definitely they want to identify. Other than that, I don't think there are other things they want to access. My gallery, my private things. I think those are pointless. It's very frustrating when it comes to when you're using an app. Like education is upfront, ask upfront. Educate context, ask context. So it's a cycle, but you have to have the critical and secondary area. So use the must things for your app. Rethink very carefully what you're going to ask from the user. Because if they will say something is fishy there, I don't want to install this app, I will delete it. So that's how it goes, right? Yeah. Make your app appear fast and responsive. So as you can see, this I got it from Google. 1 to 3 is possible. Increasing is 32. 1 to 5 it's 90. 1 to 6 the increase rate is 106%. So 1 to 10 probably bouncing increases had gone up to 123. So when you're designing it, as I said, use clear and don't use heavy images. So functionality wise, you have to use different kind of techniques to load faster. You have to always check how fast the app is loading. If it's taking so much of time, people might think that the app is stuck, or something wrong with somewhere, and they will close it or they will delete it because it's annoying, and they don't want to make their phone slow. So they will remove it for sure. So keep that in mind also when you are designing and building an app. Then the area I focused is the text, basically the content area. You have to keep in mind, we have to keep the font sizes, font families, and contrast. And right, because some people on my example, you can see like very small text, no point of having it, right? Might as well, if you want to have very lengthy text, you have it. You have a small scroll, but it should be readable, right? The other thing is when you're using text, avoid all caps, limit the length of the text lines. You don't need to have like very lengthy text, but you can have different, summarize all that. If they want to go and check more, you can give it like a more option and they can read it, regularly. Like don't squeeze lines, because the mobile is a small device. There's a resolution. Some phones have now phones have a very big displays, but there are small phones have very short, very short displays. So it's a bit hard when it comes to content. So be very mindful when you're using what the content we are going to use it. Design for fingers, not cursors. So that's the number one thing I advise our team, and we discuss on our team discussions also. When you're designing a mobile app versus a web, it's totally different. So we faced an incident where in my previous company we built an app. So we went for the standards and we checked, we tested on that, and we released it to them, and they are saying the buttons are too small. Like we were wondering why this problem came. I was very surprised, and I said it's fine for me. I don't know why. Then I had a chat with the client. So I said, can you record it when you're clicking on an app from another phone and send it to me? The reason is the US, their body structures are big. Their thumb is bigger than us, way bigger than us. So when they're clicking the other button accidentally. So those are, practical things you have to keep in mind when it's come to, these kind of matters. Now there are, standards, you can follow them. Those days there wasn't much. So, now when you're designing, you always think like, it's not a cursor, it's a fingers. So you have to keep that in mind. You can't slip that, when it's come to the web, if you have big buttons, it looks very weird. But when it's come to a mobile, it will be perfect. So you have to figure it out what you're designing for. So conclusions, like a great design is a perfect combination of beauty and functionality. And that is exactly what you should be aiming for when you're building an app. But don't try to build a perfect app right on the first attempt. It's almost impossible. Instead, treat your app as continually evolving project and use data from using sessions and users' feedback on consistency, improving the experience. This is said by Adobe. They are the pioneer designers, designing tools in the market. So they were very focused on their designing matter. So their tools are very focused on designing. So there was a kind of a conference and they mentioned this. So I thought to pull this up and show it to you guys. I think my presentation is finishing. I'm planning to do another session on the same thing on different angle. In the future, I will keep you guys posted. Thank you from my end. Okay then, if you have any questions, please drop me an email or give me a call or WhatsApp me or message me. Then I'll send you guys a reply.